all things real estate, where we dive into how to manage real estate processes, get tips on building an investment profile, create space for how to build a passive income, and most of all, how to navigate all things real estate. Here is your host, Jenny Pro Realtor, who went from being a single mom to building an empire with over $1 million in assets in real estate. She is our expert, a twin plus one mom, and relates to the average income holder to how to build their empire and grow wealth in real estate. Okay, you guys, I just started this podcast and I just did that thing that everybody says that they do when they start a podcast. I recorded the whole thing without the microphone on, which I don't know why I would do that because I'm supposed to hear it in my ear. But here we are again. Hopefully I'll be proficient in this episode. I was sitting there thinking, oh, this is kind of weird. I usually hear my voice and I can't hear my voice. Oh, okay. Let's just chalk it up to being a mom. So today's episode, I'm really excited to talk to you about personal investing, which means taking your private properties and turning them into investments, and how to move forward from one property to two property, three properties to five properties, six properties to eight properties, the whole 9 yards. And I'm excited to talk to you about this. First and foremost, I want to address what people are saying about investors taking over the market. Not a trend that we're seeing. It's going to help the economy, and it does not drive up the price for buyers. If you want to talk more about that, please let me know. But actually, it's helping the economy and giving renters more of an opportunity to move in, making it more competitive for renters, the whole 9 yards. So, and we pay taxes too. So you got to think about that too. Alrighty, let's jump into this one. So this episode is going to be a little bit about me sharing my story and how I became an investor in real estate, especially being a single mom. So I want to tell you about my story and how to move forward and turning a primary residence into an investment property, and why you want to do it from a primary residence and not just from an investment standpoint. So let's go ahead and jump into my story to help you understand the concepts and how to make the cash make sense, make the numbers make sense, and get you a cash in pocket flow every single month. So here I was as a single mom. And if you want to know more about my story, my first episode is about how I became a real estate agent and how I got started in this business, especially going through a nasty custody battle, being in major debt, and turning around and buying my first single family home and my first year of being divorced. So let's bring back to where I am here now. How did I make this even possible? Here I was as a single mom. I had just got divorced, but I had just started a relationship. Gosh darn it. Because I had a goal in mind that I was going to buy my first investment property a year after being divorced. Mind you, when I made this goal, I was almost $80,000 in debt. So I had the goal to pay it all off and save for the down payment of my first property and to move forward. Lo and behold, the love of my life just happened to walk into my life and steal my heart. And I remember thinking to myself, hold on a second, you're not a part of my plans. Like, I have a plan to buy my own property and you're messing this up. We joke about it nowadays, but I really seriously did have this goal. And so we ended up getting engaged in spring, and I told him, look, I want to buy my own property. And so the month before we got married, I bought my own property. And I scoped out what kind of property I would want from an investment standpoint. This was not going to be a property that I was going to live in longer than 12 months. Reason why I was going to live in it for 12 months is because my FHA loan requirements were that I were to live in that home for 12 months before moving the loan. Now, you can do that, and you can have a life circumstance change your plans and actually get you to not have a fee if you're going to close on a loan and sell the house, or not have it be your primary residence, right? So here I was, and I knew I was going to scope out on what to invest in. Very different than being in a primary home. A townhouse was what I was aiming for. Reason why it was a townhouse is because townhouses have HOAs. I normally would hate HOAs, and I don't want to live in an HOA, but I love HOAs when it comes to investment properties. I don't have to deal with mowing the lawn, with the gardening, with the roof, with the fencing, lots of things that the HOA is going to take care of for me. Plus, I have a close proximity of neighbors if my tenants are doing anything they shouldn't be doing. Sometimes you have pet allowances, which really help me to make sure that my tenants have smaller pets or no pets at all. and just gives me a good scope for a cash investment. Plus, the long term townhouses that value end up going up faster because it's what the average income holder can afford, especially nowadays with the market and where it's going. I also wanted to pay attention to the city and where the city was at. Is it going to be an upcoming city? What type of city is it going to be to attract the type of tenant that I want? And for example, if you were going to be scoping out Orem, you got to know that there's a university there and you might be attracting students versus, if you're in North Salt Lake, you might be attracting more of a single guy or girl or a bunch of people living together. Or more of a family city, you might be attracting more of a family like American Fork. I decided between Bluffdale and Saratoga. So I started to scope out the houses around those areas to see what I was looking for. I definitely wanted a 4-bedroom townhouse because I knew that as an investment property, a 4-bedroom was going to have more power in finding tenants. Plus, I could rent it for more. And I wanted a 4-bedroom townhouse. Huge difference between a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom townhouse, if you can only imagine. So I found a 4-bedroom in Bluffdale and I really loved it. I loved everything about it, but the basement was unfinished. But I thought we could finish the basement and put a bedroom down there. The reason why I liked Bluffdale is because it's an up and coming city. It's a city where the prison's going to be moved out. So the values are low right now because the prison's still there. But when the prison moves out, there's a whole infrastructure for the all of these new buildings to come up, which is going to increase the value of my property. With that being said, that one didn't end up working out. Negotiations just didn't work out. I was not willing to bring down my price. Obviously, as a real estate agent, I know where the price points are at and what I was willing to do. It was back then when, buyers had a little bit of wiggle room in negotiation. So my second city was Saratoga. Now, I love Saratoga, totally upcoming city, lots of new build, attracts good families, very versatile. It's a little bit farther away than I wanted it to be, right? That's what everybody used to see Saratoga as. But the great thing about Saratoga is because the census report did not go through for COVID, it is still considered a rural city. A rural city meaning that you can get a rural housing loan, which means you have a no down payment assisted loan, which means you need no cash to buy a home because the definition of rural, which means they're trying to populate the city. So if you are looking to buy right now, I suggest you jump on that before the census report changes because the population has definitely increased in Saratoga and it's definitely not a rural city anymore. So I keep telling people, jump on it, get a no down payment assisted loan in Saratoga and move in. You don't have to pay for you have cash flow to move in. Granted, they do make their money with the interest rates, right? So here I was and I found a perfect 4-bedroom townhouse, finished basement in Saratoga in the backyard of Walmart. It was fantastic for a perfect location. So we decided to move forward. I say my fiance and I, but I decided to move forward, right? And ended up purchasing that home. And then I got married a month later. The plan was to live there for 12 months, according to the FHA loan that we were on. Well, lo and behold, we move in the end of July, get married in August, and then I find out I'm pregnant with twins in November. That was definitely not in my plan or my goals is to have twins. So we were now definitely on a crunch time to be able to move. Well, my business ended up slowing down because I was so exhausted from being pregnant. I thought, how am I going to move forward with this next property if I don't have as much cash flow or clients because I'm so pregnant? But I stuck to my goals. And that's the thing. When you're investing in real estate, if you keep your eye on the prize, anything's really possible. Like it's not that hard to invest in real estate. You just have to be able to put forward the work and do your savings and keep track with your finances. So, plus, if you have a good real estate agent on your side, then you definitely know what your ins and outs of your numbers are and how to move forward. So here we were sitting in our first house. My husband has his own house in Midville, so he has an up and down basement that he rents out, which I inherited, right, as a married woman to him, but it's still in his name. So he has his investment property and I have mine, which feels good. It's my backup plan as a divorcee to if I ever get divorced again, which I don't foresee happening, but it's something in the back of my mind since I was divorced. Here we are. I had just had twins at the end of July. We had just hit our year mark, so we were able to move. Granted, we could have moved sooner because we fit that whole life changes, right? I was having twins, didn't have enough space. And so I could have used that as an excuse to move out of my house sooner than a year. Talked to my lender, got that approved, figured that out, right? But we didn't want to because I was so pregnant. I wanted to be able to help the move and not be so exhausted and not know what to do with the nursery when I got there, the whole 9 yards. So instead of moving before the babies came, we decided to move 2 months after they came. So how the logistics of this works. So we obviously didn't have a lot of cash flow to move forward to the next property, but what you can do is pull out what is called a home equity line of credit, or you can refi your home. Both of those options give you cash flow to pull out of that property, and you can put that cash in towards a down payment to another property. Here's the hiccup here as well. You cannot have two FHA loans in your name. So you have to either refi the FHA loan or you have to move to the second loan with a conventional loan. FHA loan is a 3.5% down. Conventional loan is a 5% down. So big difference. In our situation, I decided to crunch the numbers. Numbers can always talk better than I can. And I will say that so many times in these podcasts. Numbers, 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 which is why I fell in love with this business, because I love looking at the numbers and seeing if it makes sense. I wonder if I got that from my dad, because he's an investor in commercial real estate, and watching him and my uncle talk numbers and negotiate. Obviously, I love my job as a real estate agent because that's what we do. So I called around different banks and institutions to see what their home equity line of credits looked like versus what a refi looked like. What would be the cash flow? What would be the monthly payment? And what is the interest rate? Those are the three things that I'm paying attention to. So the HELOC was the one thing I decided to go forward to more. Even though the monthly payment cost more, my interest rate was lower, and over the life of the loan, I was going to end up paying less. Plus, I could pull out more money if I wanted to. So this home equity line of credit was coming out on the townhouse, and I was going to move that cash over to the new property. So a lot of times, home equity line of credits do have a, I want to say volatile, but I know that's the wrong word. It's not a fixed, it's a variable. There it is, variable. Has a variable interest rate. What variable interest rate means, it matches according to the market right now. Now that's great if the interest rates are on a down, but if the interest rates are up on going up, then you definitely want to look for a fixed rate. Sometimes it's hard to find HELOCs on a fixed rate, but luckily for me, I found one on a fixed rate. If it wasn't a fixed rate, I probably would have gone with a refi. Now, with interest rates on the rise, that's something you have to consider is, would it be smart to pull out a refi and go from a 3% to a 6%? Well, let me tell you, if the numbers make sense on having your tenant pay that monthly payment, then yes, it's worth it. Let me give you an example. So let's say my mortgage on the townhouse costs $1,600, and then that includes the $150 HOA. Always have to include the HOA. You don't have to include the utilities because your tenant should be paying the utilities. And the HOA does pay the water on a townhouse, right? Second thing you want to be looking for is the cash flow. So where is the cash flow here? I can rent that property out because it is 4 bedrooms around $2,400, $2,500 a month. That's almost $1,000 cash flow in my pocket. So when you talk about ROI, which is return on investment, I have a revenue that I'm making. I'm making equity on the property, which is the market going up and my value of my home going up. We're all familiar with that from the last couple of years, right? But then you also have cash flow. So my cash flow is $900. I had $900 to play around with when it came to refining or a HELOC. So my HELOC sits at right now at $700 a month. I went with HELOC because it was less for the long life of the loan, and I wanted to pay it off sooner. I wasn't paying it. My tenant's paying it. So we ended up pulling out $65,000, which a lot of times banks might do 80% of the equity that you have in the home that you could pull out. We didn't want to pull it all out. We wanted to leave the equity in. In fact, the math that I do is about a 30% pull out. And so as an investor, I want to make sure I'm only using 30% of the equity and leaving the rest of it in the property. You can decide what you feel most comfortable with in moving forward and playing with those numbers as well. Then we took that cash and was able to use that for the down payment in the home that I'm living in right now. This is my in-home office, and we are in Eagle Mountain. So I stayed in close proximity to my rental, so it'll be easy for me to move back and forth and see how my tenant's doing. If I need to go over there and do some landlord work, I'll be honest with you guys, the great thing about this situation is I married somebody who knows how to do all those things, be a landlord and a maintenance guy and fix things. But if you don't have somebody who knows how to do that, and you don't want to collect the cash and you don't want to have to deal with the tenant, you can hire management companies. They do take a percentage of the income And that's something you can work with when you're trying to move forward in all of your other properties. But it's something to pay attention to when you're moving forward, is if you are going to hire a management company or not. So here I am living in my second house. We decided to settle down a little bit and not use this one as an investment property because my son just started kindergarten. Now we have 3 kids. We want to slow down a little bit, but you can keep using this model and do it 1 house, 2 house, 3 house, and move every 12 months. There's nothing against that. You do have to change it on your taxes that it's not your primary residence anymore, but the loan is done and good. You were able to move into that house with a lower interest rate rather than an investment interest rate. You didn't have to put 20% down, and you were able to live in the home and move on from it, and you made more money, which is why a lot of people do this. So instead of buying an investment property, you bought a primary residence. But let's say you wanted to move forward and decide that you wanted to stay in your primary residence and move forward to another investment property. How do you do that? Well, it's very similar. It's the same concept. Like I said, you can pull out the cash up to about 30% is my cap out on your primary residency and move forward to the next property, which is a 20% down. You end up getting a higher interest rate because it is an investment property, but you can buy 4-plexes, 6-plexes, 2-plexes, or you can buy another, just a single townhouse. You can buy a condo. I like to stick to townhouses and condos, and my dream is to own multiple 4-plexes. And sometimes my dream is to own like a 16-plex or a 32-plex, but we'll see where my life takes me, right? Concepts that if the numbers make sense, then you should do it. So this is the gist of this episode today. We will go into the next episode is about laws and managing tenants and figuring out where you should do with what your leases are, where your laws and regulations are at. Now, granted, I am not an attorney, so I can only base that on my experience. And as a real estate agent, I would always advise you when you're building a tenant lease to reach out to an attorney and to get a lease from them and to build that lease. I now can sit and say I'm building equity in my property. And it's a good feeling to know that I am able to move forward. Getting in the door is always going to be the hardest part, though. But let me help you get into the door, keep you educated, get you to know how to invest in real estate. I am not one of those people who believes in companies that say, oh, we can retire at the age 26 or 32 or, or even 40 years old. Those are quick fixes. And real estate is all about the long-term scope of how am I going to get this moving? When I buy an investment property, I'm not looking for the cash out right now. I'm looking for the longevity of 5, 10, 20 years down the road where I have a lot of cash flow and I can actually pull it out, which is now in my mind called my retirement fund. Lots of different strategies to pay attention to. We didn't even go into insurance and getting renter's insurance for your tenants and all the other things. Lots of things can play, but it's also very simple. If the numbers make sense, then it should make sense. I have clients that tell me, well, should I sell my house or should I rent it? And I say, well, let's look at the numbers and see if it makes sense. And a lot of times it makes sense, but sometimes it doesn't make sense. But if always you can, you should invest in real estate. Reach out to me. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I would love to sit down and let the numbers talk more than I can and lay it out and map it out, figure out what your plans are for investing in real estate. This is Jenny with Jenny Pro Realtor, and we'll see you guys next time.